Hi, I'm Brent Stafford, and this is RegWatch by RegulatorWatch.com. It's a civil war of ideas. That's how Dennis Prager and his team at PragerU describe the social and political turmoil rocking the foundations of American society, and for that matter, most of the Western world. So who is Dennis Prager? Well, he's one of the most respected and influential thinkers, writers, and speakers in America. His nationally syndicated talk radio show is heard by millions on nearly 400 stations across the U.S., and he's the founder of Prager University, a nonprofit that produces incisive online video content from a conservative perspective.
It's their way or the highway. Conform or die.
PragerU videos are a smash hit on YouTube, with over 2 billion lifetime video views racked up in just a couple of short years. Hosted by top-tier presenters ranging from eminent scientists and researchers to acclaimed authors and media personalities, PragerU's 5-minute videos tackle controversial issues, historical topics, and tell the stories of American greatness. PragerU videos receive between 2 to 3 million video views every single day, and 1 out of 3 Americans online have seen at least one PragerU video. The civil war of ideas is a battle for the hearts and minds of young people who are relentlessly exposed to left-wing indoctrination through education and the media. But PragerU is having an impact, as well over half of the 2 billion video views on YouTube are from people under the age of 35. So it's no surprise then PragerU is drawing fire from left-wing ideologues and big tech companies like Google, YouTube. PragerU content represents a clear threat to left-wing ideology, and Google knows it. Despite enormous success on its YouTube platform, Google has restricted or blocked over 100 PragerU videos. The censored videos cross a wide spectrum of topics, ranging from climate change to the Korean War and the death penalty to e-cigarettes. The only commonality is a conservative viewpoint fashioned to provide clarity on key issues of the day.
Today, the biggest threat to your freedom of expression is not the federal government. It is powerful corporations, particularly tech corporations. They can fire you for speaking their mind. They do that. They can censor you online without you even knowing it. Dennis Prager is a radio show host. He knows a lot about this. He founded PragerU. Last fall, he sued Google, saying that YouTube is restricting his videos for being conservative.
We have 4 Pulitzer Prize winners, and we have professors from Stanford, Harvard, Yale, giving courses, these 5-minute courses. They're very effective. They present a side of life that is never heard or almost never heard on our campuses. If they don't allow a free flow of information, it would be as if, I don't know, to make an odd analogy, your airport said only people on the left can fly airplanes, can be passengers on airplanes. That would be an equivalent.
Are you convinced, after going through this long process and digging into the suit, that Google's motives are ideological?
There is no other possibility.
As you just heard, PragerU is fighting back. In 2017, the nonprofit filed claims against Google in federal court, and in early 2019 in California Superior Court. In the most recent lawsuit, it is alleged that Google and YouTube are continuing to unlawfully restrict and restrain speech and expression, that they are discriminating against PragerU based on political, religious, or other discriminatory animus, and that Google and YouTube are engaging in unlawful, misleading, and unfair business practices. In the first week of May, I attended the PragerU Summit in Santa Barbra, California, where I got the opportunity to hear speak and meet Dennis Prager, Candace Owens, and the great Jordan Peterson.
If you have 3,500 people in an auditorium and they all fall dead silent, what that means is that you touched on something that's of universal importance in that moment anyways, because it supersedes, the topic supersedes anything else that's being considered. Right? It supersedes the desire to shift your position in your chair, supersedes the desire to whisper to your neighbor. It grips your attention completely and forces a silence.
So it's always troubled me. I mean, what do they stand for? And it occurred to me only in the last year or two, believe it or not. They don't stand for anything. They stand for chaos. They are a force of chaos.
I was born with a blocked tear duct, so for the first month of my life, I couldn't actually cry, and that was the very earliest indication that I wasn't going to be a liberal.
It was an inspirational weekend, which I largely took off from work, but I did pull the camera out for a few interviews to talk about PragerU, the lawsuit, the war on conservative speech, and the ideology driving it. One thing to note, though, I really was off work. Inconceivably, I shot these quick interviews unaware that they were all out of focus. Astonishing, I know, after 30 years in the business. But I did deploy an old production trick and stomped on the footage. So it's all good, but still apologies to those interviewed and to you, the viewer.
My job is to make sure millions of people see our videos, and so we make a lot of very important videos, and our goal is to reach as many people as possible and present them with ideas that they've never heard before and to ultimately change minds. So my job is to make sure every American, millions of people, watch our content. We just surpassed 2 billion views lifetime, and most of those have occurred in the last 2 to 3 years.
That's an astonishing number.
It is. It's something we're very proud of, but at the same time, if you look at how many people the left reaches and the digital media outlets and the mainstream media outlets of the left, they reach far greater. You know, you have a lot of left-leaning digital outlets that reach billions of views every month. So while we certainly are the leader in the conservative movement, we have a long way to go to catch up to the left. And one of the things we always say in our team, and we're very competitive, is we say the left is still winning because they are. So we don't want to be complacent. So we know that 2 billion is a great accomplishment, but we have a long way to go to really influence culture.
Why so much controversy around PragerU videos?
That's the mystery of our time, but what is not controversial or what is not a mystery is the fact that YouTube and big tech companies clearly don't like conservatives, and they want to shut down ideas that they don't agree with, and they see our numbers. They know we reach millions of people every day. They know that 60% of our audience is under the age of 35 because that's their analytics. They're the ones who tell us that, and so what do? They turn and restrict a lot of our videos. In the past, Facebook has removed some of our videos. We are banned from advertising on Twitter and Spotify, so it's no mystery why they're doing this. The pattern just keeps getting more and more clear that they do not like conservative ideas. They're all run by left-wingers, and they're trying to squash conservatives because we're starting to make an impact on social media, and they're trying to silence our voices, which is really disturbing.
The lawsuit, how's it going?
It's going well. So we have 2 active lawsuits. One's in federal court. It's currently on appeal in the 9th Circuit, and then we have a lawsuit we filed earlier this year in California State Court. So both our lawsuits take a long time. We're learning. So we're being patient, but we do hope we end up in the Supreme Court because this ruling could be very important.
How much of a realization is there amongst you folks that are fighting this fight that rules in the EU, are they at all impacting what the big tech companies are doing here?
Typically, with a lot of policies, what happens in Europe eventually comes to America, and most of the time that's not a great thing. So when it comes to tech censorship, yeah, you've seen a lot of this in Europe first, and now you're starting to see it here in America. So I think there is a pattern of what happens there comes here. And they don't have a real good record on free speech over there, and it's one of the beautiful things about America is we've always been able to voice our ideas. And it doesn't matter if you and I agree, but we both have the right to say what we think, especially online. These are public platforms, and their mission statements say we're a platform for all ideas. We want everyone to have a voice, and now they're contradicting themselves because they're saying, well, we don't want conservatives like PragerU to have a voice.
PragerU did a video on vaping about 1.5 years ago, maybe 2 years ago. What do you guys know about that topic and that issue?
It's an interesting one, and Dennis is a huge cigar fan, and he always talks about the difference between cigars and cigarettes, and it's an interesting topic for us to cover, but we did do a video on e-cigarettes with Caroline Kitchens, and what's very interesting is how it really is essentially water vapor, and the government's really cracking down on it, but the same people who are cracking down on it are, pro-weed, but they're anti-vaping. You can't vape in the street, but you can smoke weed in the street, so it's really, we're in this weird place of, does anyone know what they're talking about? I don't know. So the issue is it's not like a core focus of PragerU's, but what is a focus is the pattern of the government. When the government gets involved, when the government regulates, bad things happen. And so in the vaping situation, it's one of those examples. Vaping is an example of big government taking away liberties from people. Dennis Prager's good friend Adam Carolla, who's been a PragerU presenter in the past, he tells this story, and hopefully I can relay it back as good as he does and don't butcher it. But he'll say how many years ago you used to be able to smoke inside the restaurant. And it was no problem. People would smoke. If they didn't like it, they wouldn't go. And then they said, okay, the government came and said, wait a minute, you can't smoke because some people don't like it. So they had smoking section and non-smoking section. So that was fine for some years. If you didn't want to be around the smokers, you went to the non-smoking section. And if you wanted to smoke with your meal, you went to the smoking section. So then after a few years they said, okay, well, you could still kind of smell the smoke. The secondhand smoke hysteria was like at its height. So they said, now you can only smoke at the bar. And then, so it was only at the bar. And then years later they said, well, now you got to be outside. And now in states like California, it's like, well, now you got to be 20 feet away from the building. So pretty much you could smoke in your house and that's it. Like, so the point is, government gets involved and it takes away liberties one at a time. And I'm not even a smoker, but it's not the point. The point is when the government gets involved, your liberties go away.
For our audience in Canada that does not know who you are you?
My name is Katie Pavlich. I'm a contributor at Fox News and the editor of townhall.com.
And you cover at the White House too, right?
I do, yes.
You spoke today about socialism.
Yeah.
What's the crossover, do you think, between socialism and regulation? I mean, do they go hand in hand?
I think too much regulation certainly leads to socialism. I understand there has to be some kind of regulation in some aspects, but when you get to the point where government is controlling the movement of markets, how much you're allowed to produce, what you're allowed to produce, how much you're allowed to charge for something, that certainly gets into that category. And then when you have the government now wanting to take over entire industries like healthcare in America right now, that becomes certainly socialist.
You had mentioned at the end of your speech that a particular ideology is the most dangerous thing facing America. What is that ideology and why?
I didn't say it was the most dangerous thing facing America, but I did say that it was an existential threat to American principles and the U.S. Constitution, and that is socialism and communism, because it's opposite of what America is all about. America is all about the individual person being able to pursue their future and their goals and their dreams as an individual. Everyone in America has a different story for a reason. And if you advocate for an ideology that requires everybody fit into one-size-fits-all policies and behave the exact same way, you're essentially taking away American individualism, which is a cornerstone of what this country is all about.
Is climate change kind of the thin edge of the wedge when it comes to socialism getting not just its foot in the door, but actually control of the economy?
Absolutely, because they make it a disaster proclamation. The world is going to end in 12 years. We have to do something at all costs or humanity will end. When the reality is that humans, if you look at, they say the science is settled on this. The science is not settled. There are plenty of scientists who don't get as much attention or nearly any attention for having a different point of view. And there's a lot of corruption when it comes to federal grants that are given out to universities. And they're given out based on political ideology, not based on science when it comes to the environment and climate change and where the world has been before. I mean, just basic things. I grew up in Arizona. It used to be under an ocean. You can go to the top of the Grand Canyon and find seashells there. The world changes and there are questions about man's impact on the climate, of course. But whether we are going to destroy entire economies for the sake of not changing anything and giving government all of the control of how we operate is certainly goes right into communism and socialism.
It is the most fantastic blessing working at PragerU. I get to interact with people every single day, talk to them when I'm out on the street doing videos. The staff at PragerU is always so helpful and we're such a good community there. And just the fact that we're able to spread these videos to so many people with these great values, we really are making a difference. We really are changing America.
What kind of a challenge is it out there being a young person? And we hear the data all the time that it's pretty bleak when it comes to the values. They really truly believe socialism is a viable option.
Yeah. Well, it's horrible for young people right now. They have been taught that things like socialism, like you said, and communism and all these different leftist policies are actually good for people when time and time again they've destroyed people's lives, they destroyed entire economies and countries. So it's very tough. I dropped out of college to go and work for PragerU because I couldn't take the indoctrination anymore, and I saw that I could do more work outside of college working for an organization like PragerU than I could ever do sitting in classes fighting back against that indoctrination there.
Tell our audience a bit about the struggles that PragerU's having with the videos and censorship.
Yeah, so our videos are restricted on YouTube. I think we have about 100 videos that are restricted on YouTube, and it's a huge issue because it's a free speech issue, right? These companies like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, social media giants, they claim to be public forums open to all, when really they're trying to say they're a publishing tool, because then they go and silence people based on their political views, on their religious views, anything like this. Like we just saw with the Facebook with Paul Joseph Watson and Alex Jones, these people getting shut down for their views, but then they have claimed that they're a public forum. So technically, think that our case is going to do incredibly well and we're going to win, and we're going to have to basically make new laws, or the U.S., they're going to have to put something out there for public forums on the internet, because there's never been something like that, you know? Something like Google as a utility. Like you said, 90% of people have used Google as a search engine in America. It's incredible. You know, a company like Microsoft with billions of dollars, they made Bing. Do you use Bing? Nobody uses Bing, right? And now billions of dollars, cutting-edge company at the top of technology. So if Microsoft can't do it, no one else can really make a competitor to this. They are a utility at this point, and we are fighting against that and fighting against the restriction of free speech.
You mentioned in your talk here today a story when you were in class, a TA turned to a person of color next to you and turned to you and said, "You're oppressing this person because you're white." Is that what the story was?
Yeah. So it's basically the sense of trying to showcase white privilege, which is, of course, a disgusting ideology, which is reverse racism, which is just racism. This happens at universities all over the country, where people are shamed for their race or their ideas being conservative, and this is happening all over the country. And it's a terrible thing to happen, or for their gender, right? And so the left claims that they're these virtuous people who are for everyone, but they only care about people's intersectionality. If you don't have intersectionality benefits or belong to a certain group, the left doesn't care about you.
This is going to be a thinker question. Do you have any thoughts on why being oppressed is a virtue?
Why being oppressed is a virtue? I would say you can think back to the Bible, I would say. And the Israelites in Egypt were being oppressed, but they were virtuous people, and then they got the land from God eventually in the land of Israel. And so that's really the only answer I can think.
That's actually a really good one, because basically what you're saying is that the oppressed is the chosen one.
A little bit. I think it's been different throughout history, and you can look at that in different situations, say maybe this time isn't like that, this time is like that. But what you can say is that anytime there is someone who is being oppressed, we should have people standing up for them, but in the right way, because again, the left is claiming that people are oppressed, but they're not really oppressed in America. They have all these benefits, all these things that are going for them. But the left is trying to identify them as victims, give them victimhood, when in reality the real people who are being oppressed right now is a lot of conservatives in America, and also families and traditional values, people who have those kind of values. They're being oppressed in America, and their voices aren't being heard. And so those are the people who we need to stand up for and really make sure that we get those values out there, because those are the values that are going to keep America as the greatest country on earth. Socialism is not going to make America the greatest country on earth. Telling people they're a victim is not going to continue to do that either. So we need to continue to introduce these values to people.
You did a video on 420.
Yes, I did. I'm from Denver originally, so I went to the 420 festival in Denver, and that was it was a lot of fun. I had to wash my hands a few times afterwards. The point of that video wasn't to talk about how people who smoke weed are bad. I got that from a few people saying, "Oh, like, I can't believe you do this." Not very many people, but a few who are kind of upset about it. The point was to show that Denver is turning into a leftist cesspool of people, right? And that this 420 march was full of people who are leftists and believe in socialism and healthcare, free healthcare to people. And so that was more the point, not to show that anyone who smokes weed is, of course, an idiot, right? I go to all the marches pretty much here in Los Angeles, here in California, all across the country, and it's like we go to the women's march, and it's like these women are talking about how oppressed they are and how they don't have the same rights and all of these different issues that they're going up against, but it's like, you have these things. So it's like, but what do these activists do when their problems have been solved? Like someone like Al Sharpton, right? Like, what do you do when the black community has been solved of its ills, and now people are able to be free and not oppressed in America? Well, you create problems. You create problems so that you can remain in a job and create this persona for yourself. And so that's what's really happened in America. And so because of that, we have people who want to continue to be victims and continue to be oppressed. But it's not that all these people at the 420 festival are in this sort of outrage culture exactly. They're just doing what they've been told. They've been indoctrinated and brainwashed. So we have to break these people out of this and let them know that the left does not care about you. These issues are solved, and if they would just live their lives normally without going on social media and reading leftist blogs all the time, they would realize that their lives are exactly the same and better off than anywhere else in the world.